Okay, briefly, um, I rely on a lot of people to provide me quality intel, and I didn't look too deep at the South Park episode featuring Charlie Kirk. I just noted the significance of how it elevated him into the view of people who didn't know who he was right on time for the event. And I left it at that. I thought that was sufficient anyway to make the case for the media saturation with the concurrent propaganda, concurrent programming, as we say. But Busy 56 posted the clip from the episode in our Discord server, and I didn't realize this, but in the scene, the Charlie Kirk cartoon character, Cartman or whatever, gets knocked off the chair and falls to the left. So, in addition to its timing being conspicuous, it has Charlie Kirk falling off the chair to the left. So, not that we needed any more confirmation in terms of this particular event and the concurrent and predictive programming. I only stopped here because on my last video, somebody said I was wasting pixels. They said, you're wasting pixels streaming vertically. So I'm like, all right, let me go test out my hardware. Let's see if we can do horizontal. Is it horizontal or am I sideways? Somebody let me know. Am I sideways? Does it look like I'm on the side of the Earth, perpendicular to the North Pole? Or is it properly horizontal? But anyway, if you haven't seen it, it's on my Twitter account, which is IPS Think Tank. And we would not be able to amass information, content, references, sources all cited if it wasn't a group of us. And we're scattered. So it's not like they can spot us and get rid of this thing. And it's not going away. Inbound PSYOP DC, I saw it. Somebody posted a picture of the shooter. He was a rather large man, hogtied. Somebody said it looked like one of Owen Benjamin's bears. I can't verify that. Thank you, Andrea. We're horizontal. I just got back from the post office. I sold 9 out of the 11 paintings I listed. So thanks to those of you who purchased. Your paintings are on the way. You should have the tracking numbers. My eBay store was actually in the red. And after shipping, I am exactly at 0. So I got the work out, and costs included, my eBay account is now above water. And I still have more. I have a lot of work I haven't listed. I actually threw away a few hundred art cards because they were dreary. For some reason, I spent the last few years painting the same stuff again and again and again. And variants of the same things. And oftentimes I would paint over paintings. So all these paintings in my backpack were just like thick, textured, and like I said, dreary. So I put them all in a duffel bag and I dumped them. I wanted to do a funeral pyre. There's various times where I thought it would have been nice to just burn a bunch of stuff, but the legalities. Although one time, and this was an accident, I had an art studio burn. Andrea says, there's a character in Severance who keeps painting the same scene over and over. Yeah, I was painting variants of the same thing. And I just go with it. I don't really care. Like, I'll paint a scene if I have a scene, but if I'm just painting out of my head, it tends to be somewhat redundant, but I feel like I'm trying to get to something with it. Or I thought I was. I think I've arrived at a couple of things, though. Like one of my latest paintings, which sold, has this person, like basically a profile, but split open, and you see inside there's these 2 faces looking in 2 directions with 2 different expressions, and then they're surrounded by layers of masks. I've been really into this theme of masks because I've just been thinking about how the the human personality is like so complex, and It's very hard to actually know somebody, if it's even possible. But anyway, this morning we were talking about the Amazon release called Climate Trails and how tremendously disappointed I am that that stuff still gets a pass. And I figured it out. The entire anti-geoengineering movement is top-down. It is 100% as big as climate change. It's just modeled for the right wing. 33NDB says, Owen Benjamin is pushing the official narrative when the CK event happened. He's non-credible at this point. Yeah, that's true. But that's the same thing with, I think, I got to see what Matt Hyde said, we are all Charlie Kirk. All these right-leaning comedians, these woke right comedians, believe Charlie Kirk really died and that the girl died on the subway. They don't know about media fakery, or they're part of the whole bread and circuses, which is possible. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any reasons, and I don't really care to try to speculate as to whether somebody is an agent or not. I mean, I could be an agent by the standards of some people. Although, I don't know. It depends. Because one thing I'm not doing is I'm not taking any political stance. So, you know, who am I benefiting by telling people not to vote? And I'm not telling people not to vote. I'm just asking, what is the intention behind it? Like, if you consider the implications of staged historical events, we could call them psyops, you could call them hoaxes, but let's just call them what they are. Because these are simulated events with significance in terms of our shared history. These are world-changing events, turning points in history. And the fact that they're scheduled in advance says quite a lot about the validity of other systems. And I'm suggesting that maybe the whole thing about political theater and politics in general is just a steam valve to give the masses an illusion of control. And I think that's what it is. That's why I'm not getting wrapped up in it. Dark Ghost Wind said, I mentioned this before, but many people get the Charlie Kirk analog in South Park wrong. Clyde is Charlie Kirk and Cartman is a replacement. Yeah, either way. And yeah, that's exactly it. I wasn't getting into the complexities of the scene, but yeah, if you follow the scene, you still have this Charlie Kirk-esque character. There's somebody stealing his shtick, but looks like Charlie Kirk on the screen getting pushed off the chair. And I think the Cartman association is notable because Cartman is typically associated with, you know, Hitler and KKK. He crosses those transgressive lines. I mean, I don't know. He's just a foul-mouthed little kid, but he's basically, in many ways, a representative of, I think, how the left characterizes the right. He's like basically superimposing him over TPUSA makes sense. But I'm just pointing this out because we have been discussing this process, nuanced than just predictive stuff that we're so-called cherry picking, as some would say. Because there's the predictive content, which serves as like advertisement, product placement for future fake events, because they're selling us on these events in advance and the agendas behind them. They advance agendas right after these things quickly. But the real-time stuff is far more intriguing and more damning as far as evidence of what we're saying. And it's the concurrent stuff that sets the stage for the event. That's why South Park was so significant. It's like Mad Max out here. That's why South Park is so significant. The fact that they platformed this person and made him a household name in preparation for the event. And that'd be under concurrent programming. But then the bigger part of it is the reinforcement. So you got predictive, concurrent, reinforcement. And the reinforcement is when the media ecosystem, its various echo chambers, reinforce the basic premise. And that's why you have Candace Owens and her 33 variations of the Charlie Kirk thing, the Charlie Kirk multiple shooters, Israel did it, whoever did it, Erica Kirk shot him. I don't know where she's at right now. Bridget McCrone shot him. But the point of it is, none of these entertain the premise that he's not dead. None of them do. They all start with the premise that the mainstream established with what they showed you on the screen. And what I'm really getting at here is that this South Park thing is just another example of how Not only did I say if it's fake, there's going to be predictive and concurrent programming. It's an example of concurrent, but also predictive, because it came beforehand and it had the trolley guy getting knocked off the chair to the left. So just another example, that's all. And one of the things we've been doing is looking at the various examples of associated entertainment programming with every fake event, noting the directors, the actors, and the common denominators in terms of the elements in the film or book that correspond to the fake event. And it's very revealing. And so we're unpacking the news bending, because news bending is real. And one more point here. If you accept the premise that psychological operations are happening, and these are more than just like a PR stunt. These are staged historic events. You have to think about it's a story being sold, and it's being internalized into every person who processes it as real. So looking at it from that perspective, if you accept the premise that they're staging events, and the events do in fact become history because news becomes history, then you already accept my premise here that future events are being staged. We just need to discuss how far back are they planned, and then what are the implications thereof. For example, I would say that the Charlie Kirk shooting was planned in the mid-90s before he was even in that role, which suggests that maybe he and Erica Kirk weren't really married. Maybe those kids are fake. It certainly would imply that Candace Owens was part of the scenario from the beginning, also similarly playing a role. We're talking about plants, script readers, actors in a reality TV show that's something of an alternate reality game because it invites audience participation, but it's totally scripted. So in addition to scripted events, like these significant headline grabbing events, there are scripted people. Elon Musk, foreshadowed in a book by Werner von Braun. Donald Trump, 1958, tracked down. How many of these world stage characters can you find corresponding predictive content for, predictive movies, books, where they pre-exist themselves? It's like they stepped into a role. We were examining about 7 examples of Donald Trump in various movies, where in each of these, he's represented as somehow being associated with an assassination attempt or 9/11 or both. In every one of them. And the way they foreshadowed Donald Trump was in his present form, in the presidency, after he's become this MAGA character that everyone on the left hates. So it's like they even foreshadowed that. I mean, remember, the 1958 trackdown even had the Trump guy getting arrested. So I'm just saying, fake events, fake people. And these fake people associated with the fake events tend to be associated with other fake events. So you have to look at these things in a continuity. Someone said, isn't it strange how people are questioning the integrity of Charlie Kirk's neck in stopping the bullet, but the same people have no questions about Donald Trump's ear deflecting an AR-15 round? It's like, that's a good point. Same people, same PSYOP entertainment complex. These things are a part of a continuity, and this also would imply that the people associated with these actors are all in on it. Isn't it interesting that thought crimes, and associated to human events, thought crimes, which has Jack Posobiec, Charlie Kirk was on it, and this guy named Tyler. So on Thought Crimes episode 33, and by the way, the South Park episode in question was episode 330. But Thought Crimes episode 33, Charlie Kirk's talking to a guy named Tyler. And remember, Tyler was caught after 33 hours. There's a repetition here. So he's talking to Tyler, and he's talking about the idea of televised executions. And as they're talking about executions, Tyler says, oh, well, the last televised execution was in France on September 10th, 1977. But you read between the lines, like, wait, September 10th, execution, televised, France. And it all kind of brings up the guillotine, cut to the neck. But when you look at the big picture here, Kirk talking to a guy named Tyler about a televised shooting and execution. Well, all of these elements are evident in the other examples of predictive content, like in Snake Eyes. Tyler the Executioner's the boxer. That Charlie Kirk gets shot in the neck. Anyway, without repeating all this stuff, I just think it's notable that South Park hasn't fallen off the chair, and I should have done my due diligence and watched it. But thankfully, Busy56 provided that. So if you haven't seen it, go into the Discord server or check out my Twitter feed. Of course, there'll be some who'll say it's just a coincidence. But I want to remark that these are coincidences that we predict these coincidences. I mean, we don't know where they're going to show up, but we're like, the pattern is all of the staged historical events, these simulated events, are saturating various media platforms in advance and at the same time. And if this is fake, that would be one of the indicators, because real events don't have that kind of redundancy throughout all media ecosystems, nonfiction and fiction alike. So I was going through this documentary, and again, it's a snoozer. I mean, I got through half an hour. It felt like 2 hours. Then I still have another hour to go. And they've introduced all of the major logical fallacies that I would have expected. It's not honest. I mean, it's intellectually dishonest. And I don't think there's anything we can do about it. It looks to me like anti-geoengineering is the controlled opposition of climate change. And they both agree that man is destroying the planet. So the system wins because the Hegelian dialectic has worked. And so to me, it's just another litmus test. Like, I don't care if people think that Charlie Kirk's really dead. It's a litmus test. You failed. And if people believe in, chemtrails, then, let them. My only advice here is that that you're walking around some holes in your mental immune system if you're falling for about half a dozen logical fallacies, and worse if you're using them. Like, I wouldn't want to walk in this world because there's mind viruses everywhere. And if you can be duped by a very simple loaded question and it reframes the way you see things and it aligns you with a bunch of kooks, then that's on you. But I have a book called The Chemtrail Hoax, and I'm going to revise it in light of this documentary. So I'm watching this documentary so I can refute its claims in print and release the book. It's the least I can do. I mean, I paid $5 to watch it, so I'm going to finish watching it. It's very bizarre, I have to say. Like, one of the persons in this thing is clearly lying about his telescope and how he sees the planes doing the trails, and they're special planes with a hole in the back and you can't track them. And then one of them cries and he says he can't go outside because he's scared, and he says he's like too emotional. They had a scene, they showed all of the principal individuals here crying or getting emotional, and they played sad music. They open up with the song by the conspiracy music guru, and he sings about how the skies are gray and they used to be blue. And these are the people who'll tell you, if you don't believe it, just go look up, go outside. It's like if you went outside, you would notice the sky isn't gray. But anyway, I thought there was some way to even push back against this, but no, I'm saying is that there's a trajectory here. It's sort of like, you'll notice that the climate change activists aren't given any real credibility in the mainstream. They're kind of fringe, but you see them lying down on the roads or throwing tomato sauce on paintings, trying to save Gaia by getting attention. So we're familiar with them, and when they get something done, like Greta, they're always posturing as speaking truth to power. So it's like, the reason why is that they have connected it with social justice. So climate justice, social justice. And the class warfare narrative of rich versus poor has actually expanded to rich versus the environment and the poor, but the environment. And they'll say that the poor are more adversely affected by climate chaos caused by the rich. So there's a fight the power posturing built into climate change activism. And so what they've done with chemtrail activism is the same thing, where they've been ignored, and now in 33 states, there's attempts to pass laws to ban chemtrails, which is a ridiculous proposition. But it's being pandered to because this is actually a controlled opposition movement. And so now in this documentary, they're all talking about how people are waking up. And now they're spraying us at night because people are waking up. So they're making it look like your activism is doing something. You're waking people up when you talk about it. And then one of them was talking about how this is beyond politics and we need to unite. Left and right, Democrat, Republican, we all need to unite to fight geoengineering. Look, it sounds exactly like climate change rhetoric. We need to unite to fight climate change. And what's interesting is the title is Climate Trails. So I think this is an attempt to kind of cross market, or at least a keyword grab. It's smart marketing. But I'm noticing that there aren't any heavyweight scientists out there really taking this seriously enough to discredit the thing. And my point is, the scientists will discredit this thing by using science, and they don't care. They will put their pseudoscience above your science. So you cannot refute this with science. You can refute this with philosophy. You can refute this with logic. You can refute this with how people are making their arguments. I think it's a little more about rhetoric than facts. And I think it's an article of belief. In fact, I would even categorize it as a superstition. You know, like when you have a natural phenomenon, something that's easily explained, but you have like a supernatural explanation for it, despite what is known about it. That's kind of what we're looking at here. For example, if in those woods in front of us there were bears, evidence of bears, and some people were just convinced that no, it's Bigfoot. It's like, well, you could go over there and inspect, you know, the area and find out if you think it's Bigfoot or bears. But if they're content not to go into the woods and just stick with Bigfoot, you would think that they were kind of odd. Well, the people who are content to stick to the fanciful explanation of chemtrails, who cannot refute contrails, they can't even explain them, are exactly like the people who would opt to believe in Bigfoot rather than investigate. And that's because there's no understanding from this documentary of how condensation trails are formed. One of the individuals in there, I think his name is Tanner, he's like, they only form in really cold temperatures. Well, yeah, like it's cold up there. What does he think? But anyway, it's really low effort propaganda, but unfortunately the fact that it's on Amazon is going to give it credibility, and I think it's being artificially propped up. And you'll notice all of the big channels believe in chemtrails. Like, you know how against the grain it is for us to actually suggest that these things aren't real? It's a major truth or orthodoxy. And I think ultimately it's because it's the only visible, tangible evidence of your oppression. Because if you can convince yourself, and by the way, these guys also said, one of the guys, the one who's afraid to go outside, the emotional one, said that they're filling the sky with aluminum, and he said, you ever put aluminum in the microwave? And he suggested that they're going to turn on the 5G towers. Apparently they're not on yet. And when they do, we're all going to be microwaved. So you have a little bit of fear thrown in there, a little doomsday. And another one of them had said something about how we need to stop the evil. But I'm going to finish watching it. It's terrible. Like it really is. It's kind of torture. Spraying at nighttime. One of them said it will cause Alzheimer's. What is Alzheimer's? I've been looking into their claims. And like I said, I'm using this documentary to build up content. I'm working on a lot of manuscripts right now. I tend to do either a ton of art or a ton of writing. And right now I'm working on this chemtrail ebook, and I'm doing some edits on the handbook for the recently deprogrammed. I'm going to order some copies and place that order hopefully this weekend. And as soon as I have tracking and they've arrived, I'll sign them and I'll put them in my store. But I'm also working on another project I can't take credit for. I had grok last night yesterday write me a story about a certain conspiracy theorist podcaster, and I'm actually kind of shocked at how readable it is. And I don't know if it's good or not. I mean, I'm still kind of on the fence here. But Grok wrote it. Grok rates it 10 out of 10, but it's biased. But it really has me worried for the future of writing in general. I'm not worried, but it's like, is it inevitable that we're going to spend eternity being entertained by robots? Like, are the AI comedians going to be funnier than humans? Like, what are we going to do? I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, who knows where they're at, in 5, 10 years, where, I don't know, they know what's in your DMs. They can target market jokes to each crowd. I mean, they're going to do it. I mean, I don't mind when they replace, I won't mind at all when they replace the restaurant workers with robots. I'll feel more comfortable eating if robots are serving me. All right, I'm not here streaming horizontally because I was told that I should stream horizontally, not waste pixels. And since I'm doing the whiteboard, that makes a lot of sense. I'm developing this whiteboard 45-minute talk based around a very simple couple of infographics. Because, as I was saying earlier, if you have noticed staged events, notice their persistence. They don't go away. They go into the history books. So that's what I'm talking about with the proactive creation of history. And the fact these are planned in advance is given away just for practical reasons. Obviously, they would be. But the concurrently released content, the cartoons, the movies, etc., makes you push that date back. So you have to ask yourself, how old is the script for the psyop that we just experienced? Why would you react to something like it just happened if the script for it existed 20 years ago? So it kind of puts things in a different context in terms of how you process the information. But how far back are you willing to consider? Because you have to very much, at the very least, you have to admit at least as old as the starting date for the production of the concurrently released programming. So if you want to deny the pre-existing predictive stuff, which would put the timeline back 10, 15 years or longer, just go with the recent stuff. Even that is going to put it in the 5 to 10 year range. So then this is why I get into this idea of we have these dual timelines. We have the real one that we're living through physically, but then we have the one the media delivers to us with all the manufactured fake events. So what happens day to day, yeah, they're recording it real time and whatever happens gets reported. But the fake events are obviously going to therefore be plotted onto a timeline, and they're superimposed over the real world. So that secondary timeline, the one that they superimpose through simulated events, through psychological operations, that's the one I'm talking about. How far into the future does this thing go? And I have a feeling 30 years is probably a very safe estimate, but I think there's indications of it being even further. Of course, there's going to be more specificity, I think, like with the programming stuff as you get closer, but the basic elements, what I refer to as the lowest common denominators, those will be present in the oldest examples of predictive, prescient content just out there. And it's a fictional universe, like Marvel Comics. We're talking about the series of events on this separate timeline. These things are all basically part of what you'd consider a fictional universe. And that's why there's so many connections between them. And we're also not only noting these things and the timeline, but we're also looking very closely at the authors. Hey, appreciate the very generous support. Black hand side, keep your beak to the street. Thank you so much. Very helpful. This is still my priority. I'm on an extended vacation, and I'm gonna stretch it out as long as I can. I'm just saving up because I want to get into the office spaces where I can set up multiple computers, get a 24/7 stream again, and get the publishing going. But all the support to this channel is going to go into the publication and its distribution and my plans for promoting it. And that's what I mentioned the whiteboard for. This 45-minute whiteboard is where I'm going to explain the concept of the world stage as a product of sustained lying, systemic fakery, news bending, and history bending, and why it matters. And when I explain this, I'm going to use the whiteboard, but I'm going to use it as a way to promote the book. And I think that between the explanation, the book being promoted through some kind of a book reading, and then discussing it in the context of a recent fake event, I think I could get some interesting questions. Because I want to do this as a way of testing to see how Normieville responds to these propositions. Because people in Trutherville already know it's all fake, so they're not even interested in it whatsoever. They're just like, yeah, no, of course it's fake. But then you tell them, well, these fake events are planned 30 years in advance. They're like, no, you're crazy. You're a tinfoil hatter. So we're the conspiracy theorists to the conspiracy theorists. But the mainstreamers are kind of what I wouldn't think they'd be very open to it, but they're not really that engaged so much in media as the people on the extremes. So I think they might even be open to this idea that we already live in 1984 and that we live in a system where the billions have been pacified with steam valves to give them this illusion of control. Meanwhile, for some reason, there is, for all intents and purposes, a new monotheism, a monolithic power structure that uses a world view monopoly to synchronize all of mankind globally. A goal that religions may have had but have never achieved, but this has become the official state religion on a global scale. And that's what I'm suggesting here, that it's essentially, I mean, I could say soft totalitarianism, but it's certainly that. It's not meaningful to speak of governments in the plural if they're all operating as a subset of this government, capital G. This, again, I think it's a religion. I mean, when I say religion, we're talking about a worldview with maybe a mythological history, but we're talking about a constructed worldview with a backstory, the current story, and the future is, look, they're fulfilling, in a way, their own prophecies. So we look at it as predictive programming because we're analyzing the news media to see what is being programmed out there and how does it correlate with fake events. But they're also doing this because it's an influence operation. It's to change the minds of the public, change their values, get them to accept things as inevitable. So in a way, and this isn't in a metaphysical sense or anything like that, but yeah, we are in fact creating a world according to this blueprint that we're being given all the time. We're just going along with it. I mean, they're monopolizing and taking a great deal of artistic license over worldview itself. And I am describing the media as a duopoly because the reason why I'm getting into this is the whole climate trails is obviously the opposite of chemtrails. So they get you trapped in these opposites, in these dualities. And what I noted is that there's a uniformity here, where if you're anti in any of these things, you're anti-engineering, I can point out a consistent stance that you'll have on all these other issues. And the reason why is that most of us are consistent in our thinking. And what they have done is they have constructed this thing to get people to consistently line up on sides. It's perfect. I mean, I say it's perfect. It's a well-made system. It's not like these things ever get reconciled. However, the fact that these two sides are in opposition doesn't really matter because they have a common agreement, which is the ultimate purpose anyway. Like I said, left and right both agree that the world's being altered because of man's activities, but they blame each other. But this climate trails propaganda is huge. Dark Ghost Wind says, it's always the people saying not everything's a conspiracy, bro, that are the most neck deep in Trutherville. Yeah, you go too deep for them. Like, we're at the deep end. You know, the mascot for this channel, the Emperor Penguin, one of the meanings behind it is that it's the deepest diving bird. And we are pretty much at the deep end of the conspiracy pool, and we find out that all of the conspiracies are fake. It turns out all of the conspiracies of Trutherville, if they're popular conspiracies, they're fake. These are part of a meta-conspiracy. It is the way to direct or redirect those who stray from the mainstream and who don't lean into the wokeism on the left. So one of the points I was making this morning is that all of these popular conspiracy theories are also political. So that's why I brought up the voting. Like, if you're not voting, why are you getting political? I mean, you know, every red pill, every conspiracy theory, they're political. And so it's kind of interesting how the chemtrail people are celebrating the fact that the politicians are taking them seriously. It's like, okay, this is the illusion of control I'm talking about. Make them feel like they're fighting the deep state and they're getting some victories. That's what we're seeing. Yeah, let's go. I'm here at an undisclosed location. Actually, I've painted and I've drawn this tree like 10 times. I'm familiar with most of the trees here. So the next phase here is the part where I try to see how far we can get with this book in terms of getting questions asked. Because I'm actually trying to, this is like, you know, human intel. You try to gather from the crowd. And I think right now it'd be useful to get an idea of what kind of questions people have in case I haven't confronted them. Because what I try to do here is I listen to the critics and I listen to the people who don't believe, and I try to understand, okay, what's the basis of that? I think I hear coyotes. I don't know, it seems a little early. So I'm not necessarily trying to convince anybody, but I also think this is the main thing. When you look at conspiracy theory conferences, they're all part of the controlled op. And I've been to these things. These are just big honeypots. It's really, they're all kind of shady, to be honest. The Flat Earth conferences were shady. We're not going to get into that now, but what we're doing is we're debating things that people generally wouldn't even think to be debatable. And I've described this thing as, what we're positing here, as a paradigm shift. So if you're a truther and you believe in like false flag theories, or you buy most of the conspiracy theories, that's just because it's the only alternative that you've ever been offered. And you didn't know that this alternative was actually part of an alternative closed system and a subset of the mainstream. So you didn't know, you have an excuse. The paradigm shift is when you step outside of the accepted conspiracy theories. And a lot of people are afraid to do it because there's not a big crowd. But it's like, you're already a tinfoil hatter. You're already considered crazy. What's a little crazier, you know? Just, you're crazy or crazier. And what we're positing is rooted in skepticism. You don't see skepticism practiced on the world stage. You have the selective, but even then, it's not even skepticism. It's pure incredulity. What's up, HFB367711 says, thank you for 2 lives in 1 day. Hey, I appreciate the generous support. And yeah, my objective is actually to do morning and evening. I mean, mornings has always been meant, the IPS morning deprogram, to set the stage for the open phones in the evening, where we have the phones open and talk about anything. Although I'm trying to consider maybe having some slight limitations. Like if somebody has a topic they want to go in depth about, I think that's one of those things where you take it offline and you record it in Discord and we present it as a podcast, as a train. by the tracks. 777186 says the FE Con is one of the best examples of glorification of alternate cosmology, thought, and control. Yeah, it was all glowies. Oh, that's Northern Girl. HFB36711 is Northern Girl. I'm not sure what happened to my name. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate it. Yeah, the Flat Earth Conference was steered into this supposed biblical model of a dome over a pizza disc, and they pretty much outgrouped anybody else. And weirdly enough, all of the people who were speakers at the event were just people with questionable backgrounds. I mean, you can look into it. You can look into the founder of the Biblical Flat Earth Society, but we're talking about serious, like, psychopaths and criminals. And it's like, how did these people suddenly become holier than thou preachers with this alternate cosmology, but they're all like straight out of, I don't know, like Arkham, you know, Gotham. It's like this madhouse. Like, no exaggeration. It might be fun to revisit some of that content, but I don't know. All those neck beards, I have nightmares about those types. Yeah, so the whiteboard presentation plus the book is the next phase, and I was thinking about, in fact, someone's been emailing me a list of places where I can go. I was thinking about just doing book readings. Because what we're saying here isn't like, hey, these events are fake. We're saying something else. We're actually describing the various modes through which people consume media. Because media literacy is not really a thing anymore. I mean, and you can't even tell the difference between real and fake. I was laughing at people on Twitter who were crying because there was this video, it was really sweet, where this guy rescues a big black wolf that was, about to drown in a frozen lake. He nurses it back to health, feeds it grilled cheese, takes it to the vet, and he lets it go. And a lot of people were just weeping. And eventually someone pointed out it was AI. That's what I mean when I say that at some point AI is going to be funnier than people. It's going to be a different world. Like writers, comedians, I mean, everybody needs to be, I don't know if you need to be concerned, but I don't know, what is this? Do we need to start planning the robot wars? Like, are we going to take this? Remember Nick Fuentes and his group, they were marching through Charleston, and they were like, you will not replace us. They started pushing white replacement theory. We need to start thinking about human replacement theory, or it's too late. It's too late because people will benefit from it too much. We're past the point of no return on everything, apparently. All right, let's see here. 777 says, Patricia steered, if you will. I think she might have been the only person who wasn't a shill. But I don't know. I don't have a really good shildar. Like, I don't have a radar. Like, this person's a shill. That person's a agent. I mean, it's hard to say. I think you can kind of tell by their stances on things in a way. Like, are they propaganda conduits and repeatedly pushing the same things? Like, I find it really kind of questionable. Anyone pushing QAnon, obviously. Chemtrails is kind of innocuous. Anti-vax is kind of mainstream. I can understand why people run with that. But I'm just at this point where we need to start looking at litmus tests and quarantining, because the chemtrail people are unsolvable. And the best I can do is extend a little bit of friendly advice, which is to say, if you have to be tricked into something with these logical fallacies, then there's a hole in your defense. And I think that's strategic. I mean, I think back to how I was approached with various topics and subjects. Dark Ghost Wind says, people haven't realized that the internet is completely and utterly controlled, fake stories propped up by non-existent people on social media, posting memes developed by agencies. Yeah, that's another factor here, is that AI agents are very sophisticated right now. And I'm wondering how influential those would be. Because there was this study, I think it was the University of Zurich. They got some flack. They put some AI agents on Reddit, and they were influencing people's opinions. They were turning people against BLM. They were saying that these AI agents, these aren't just bots. These AI agents were 6 times more influential than real people. And this was a study that they did and recently released, and people were mad. And I'm like, wait, these are some ethical scientists. Maybe it's questionable. But what about the people who are just making money on the internet, or people who are running ops? I mean, there's no way of telling how involved and how many agencies and entities are involved in using bots to influence people's opinions. And I'm wondering if this might be like a replacement for street mobs. I mean, people are going to get all their activism out online. They can manufacture the appearance of mass agreement or mass disagreement. Yeah, rooms of hired agents of chaos flooding social platforms. That's what it looks like. And I have a bit of experience with AI agents. I've been developing various agents for the Discord. And there's one I'm working on where I'm giving it my books as a knowledge base. And I'm going to put it to work. One of the applications, and this is going to be soon. This is why I need to get into the office, because I need to have my setup, because I want to work with these AI agents. One of my projects here is to use an AI agent to reach every single person. I don't care if it's 20,000 or 50,000 people. Every single person on X who has commented on the Charlie Kirk event in any thread referencing squibs. So if we target market anybody talking about squibs, we have a lot of accounts we have direct access to via a bot. I think I can actually amass a number of people, and I have a sort of a marketing funnel planned here, not just sending them a link. I have a marketing funnel idea, and I think we can bring in a lot of these people into the recognition that there needs to be a third platform. Mainstream doesn't want to hear your theories about it being fake. Alt media doesn't want to hear. So where do you go? Exactly. But there's enough of us, I'm saying. I think there's more than 10K. There are enough of us to create a self-aware demographic, this off-world stage perspective. And one of the reasons for my whiteboard is to demonstrate the difference in perspective. Because the mainstream perspective is guardrailed by certain presuppositions where no matter how free-thinking you are, if you have a mainstream point of view, all of your opinions are going to echo those of Wikipedia and ChatGPT. That's not open-minded. You're in a closed informational system. You can't see it. But the off-world stage perspective is what we're operating in here, where we're not acting as though the events on the world stage are organic, especially these significant ones that are clearly planned far in advance. Conscious Reality says, have you looked into the new announcement of Erica's pregnancy? Yeah, that was a rumor. She had said, when Charlie was shot, I thought, I hope I'm pregnant so I get something out of this catastrophe. So she said that she had hoped she was to Megyn Kelly. She didn't say she was. And that somehow got misconstrued into 2 weeks after Charlie died, J.D. Vance got her pregnant. Like, that's fan fiction. Like the people who talk about Princess Diana as the mom of Baron Trump. There's a lot of fan fiction on the internet as well. Like, people are living in their own fictional universes within the fictional universe. There are layers to this thing. Conscious Reality says, I was thinking this would be Rosemary's Baby. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Rosemary's Baby is an interesting one because you get into Roman Polanski, the director. You know, his wife gets the baby cut out of her, and it's, you know, the Manson killings. But she's killed by Susan Atkins. Susan Atkins was a witch at the Church of Satan. And so, of course, the director of Rosemary's Baby is about the Satanists. And it alludes to, I think, the Church of Satan and how the devil impregnates Rosemary. So there's this kind of overlap between the Church of Satan, the Manson killings, and Rosemary's Baby. Conscious Reality says, Princess Kate wore the exact same dress as Rosemary's Baby's movie. I mean, exact. Yeah, I've seen that. How bizarre is that? Oh, by the way, we haven't even looked into this one yet. Someone said, maybe it was Jurassic Liars, that Damien Thorne in The Omen is a Donald Trump reference. I have to look into that. I've heard that the word Donald means world ruler. I don't know if that's true. But what we're doing here is we're deconstructing fake events and putting them on a timeline. And we're deconstructing fake people. And fake people are the actors in these roles. So yeah, they're real in a sense, but what I'm saying is they're acting if they're being presented to you on any significant platform. Or if they're not acting at that moment, they could be, because they're propaganda conduits. Dark Ghost Wind says, are you ready for the next generation to be so entrenched in internet multimedia that they will utterly surrender themselves to the internet's fake reality? That's what we're looking at, a new dark age. If you can't tell real from fake, it's almost like being illiterate. And if you look at the use of illiteracy as a way of creating a power disparity between the educated elite and the masses, you can see the utility of leaving the public in the dark as to what is real and fake. We've been collectively hoodwinked, and it's moved fast just in the last few years. And like I said, we've passed the point of no return on this. So what does it mean? It means that you can no longer rely on the visuals to deconstruct a fake event. You have to be aware of the timeline thing. You have to be aware of news bending, of psyops and simulated events, and concurrent programming. If you're not aware of hoax indicators, concurrent programming, and everything we're talking about, you won't have any means to tell if something is real or fake. You have to change your very presuppositions. You have to adopt fake until proven real. You have to already be there. If you haven't made that paradigm shift already, you're gonna fall into this new dark age. And that's really what it is, visual illiteracy. All these conspiracy theorists who made their career pointing at the TV and mocking it, saying, hey, this looks fake. What are you gonna do when it doesn't look fake anymore? When you can't credibly say, my eyes tell me it's fake, it just becomes an opinion. I have this blog piece I need to finish called The Blindfolded Skeptic. And the premise here is we have to make sure that we have enough information to discredit something that we're suggesting is fake. And you should be able to make the case to somebody in a dark room, trapped in an elevator in the dark. You should be able to convince somebody that this event was fake without having recourse, to any kind of screen or any kind of visuals. And I maintain we can do this with pretty much every event, especially when you get into the hoax indicators, as I call them. Going through your comments. Drinkwater says, imagine with virtual reality, AI will be harder for people to figure out stuff that they haven't already been able to figure out basics. Exactly, like the moon landing. And the thing is, these events of the past, yeah, you're right. They've already sort of erased it. They've already scrubbed it. It almost doesn't matter. It's like they got away with it. We're already in this thing. We're just going deeper in. And maybe this is just the next iteration of their system to counter the fact that now we're all interconnected and we could possibly think our way out of it. But it's like we've been outsmarted. They've already accounted for this. I mean, they've already accounted for people seeing through fakery. But I don't think they've accounted for people reverse engineering events in the way that we're doing. Because you'll notice this isn't a popular thing. It's shunned. It's being ignored and marginalized by the people on the margins who should be looking into it. If you're going to devote your time, energy, and attention to conspiracy theories that don't go anywhere or don't actually involve fixing the world or anything like that, if you're just repeating these mantras, like, you're a propaganda mule at this point. and you're being prepared to vote for some Republican who's going to save you. That's what it comes down to. That's Candace Owens' job, and the reason why she's not going to disappear at any point is her job is to take the red pill conspiracy theorists and funnel them into woke right. Penguinotti says, Amazon's making a chemtrail scare movie moments after you debunk chemtrails. That's cause and effect, bro. Well, you know, the guy who produced it, you know, Hibbler and company, we've looked into all of them. No, Fakeologist took the night off for Thanksgiving. He had mentioned that last week. And there haven't really been any significant psyops in the last week anyway that I've... Although, this is big. This South Park clip with a Charlie Kirk-esque character gets thrown off the chair to the left. Drinkwater says, even the story of Thanksgiving is fake as hell, but we still celebrate it. Well, I think there are many different traditions that celebrate the harvest. It's kind of a pagan thing, if you ask me. I'm going to give thanks to Gaia, not the pilgrims, or whoever we're supposed to think. It's still pretty much Halloween here. People haven't taken down their 13-foot skeletons. They buy these bigger skeletons every year from Lowe's and Home Depot. Everyone's got these gigantic Grim Reapers like crawling on their homes. And I'm like, where are you going to store it? And they just leave it there. I don't know if every city's like that. But it does seem like the whole death aesthetic is getting more popular, the horror stuff. Halloween's become more horror, which is good. Because the trend before was, it was for, you know, like, I don't know, I never got into like the nurse costumes and stuff. It's like, this isn't a holiday for dressing up in adult-themed costumes. This is a holiday for death and ghosts and demons. Like, it's that simple. And people somehow got it mixed up. So I'm glad to see the real Halloween themes coming back. This is good. Dark Ghost Wind says, some people can't comprehend the idea that a website like 4chan, a site known to influence internet culture, could be used as a vehicle to control emotion and media context through memes and rhetoric. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it's basically info war. And memes are info dense. So memes are derided, like, oh, it's just funny cat things. No. To what a meme is. It's a unit of cultural information. And when you assemble enough memes, you have the frame of reference to put it together in some way. That's where mind viruses come from. Memetic engineering, the creation of belief systems by puzzle pieces, by basically breadcrumbing somebody. That's why I think it's important to note things like, okay, so you get into chemtrails. Well, now you're part of a belief complex. Now you're susceptible and you're going to be led into these other areas where you're anti-engineering first. Now you're going to be afraid of 5G. Now you're afraid of this. Now you're listening to this person. And if you go through it, you can see how a person goes around picking up mind viruses. So mind viruses, I disputed their existence, but they do exist. But they only exist if you don't have a functioning mental immune system or functional enough. If you have mind aids, and they give you mind aids. That's what your indoctrination is for. If you haven't inoculated yourself or cured it, you're going to catch a lot of these things almost passively. D. Nixon 845 says, have you seen the road rage shooting in Vegas 14th with a perp named Tyler Matthew John, 22, victims 11. Tyler has a hat with glasses on and seems to be acting. I'm going to watch that again. I hope it's fake. It's a horrible story if true. Penguinotti Auto Hoaxer says, Kanye says, now is it Kanye or Klanye? Said the pilgrims were the Hasidic Jews based on their similar garb. Hate to agree with Kanye, but who else but Hasidic Jews dressed as identical to pilgrims? We were talking about the symbolism of the black-rimmed hats and the black robes, the Saturnian references in various movies, and how they're always associated with a control over time and space, restriction, constraint, ruling over the material. Thinking it's 1 month anniversary of Charlie's birthday. Now, Charlie's birthday is the 14th. Yeah, it's kind of weird. They've got all these guys over there at Turning Point at the Thought Crimes podcast, and they're all saying, what do you think Charlie Kirk would be having for Thanksgiving if he was still alive? Well, I don't think he liked sweet potatoes, but I know he liked apple. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, they're still gushing over him. Meanwhile, Erica Kirk has moved on. She's all leather pants and JD Vance. She's like, Charlie Kirk was great, but JD Vance. I'm like, okay. But we kind of called that based on Heads of State with VP Kirk, played by the actress who's the blonde femme fatale next to Charlie Kirkland in Snake Eyes when he gets shot in the neck. She's a fake person. I mean, she's an actress. She's playing a role. And people are so crazy. I see this comment and someone's like, blood pudding. Like, the people who think it's real are psychotic. Like, yeah, he really died and they're celebrating it still. They're making jokes about his death. And I'm like, that's crazy. Yeah, you saw that the whole thing with JD Vance is being talked about in CNN, and they're making a bunch of comments about it. And a lot of people are mad, but I'm like, this is not unintentional. They're creating this perception with all of these characters. She is right out of Snake Eyes and Heads of State and The Tempest. She's the widow. We've seen this. We've already seen this movie. If you've watched Hulu's The Tempest, you've already seen most of this movie. If you've seen Heads of State. But ever since the death of Charlie Kirk, J.D. Vance has been in the picture. He was riding the coffin on September 11th. Like that PR stunt. And like, even if the guy was really dead, that's kind of gross to rush the autopsy and embalming, get it done in 2 hours so that you can have him on display for September the 11th. Like, that wasn't planned. Yeah, what kind of chemicals are in that cloud? I saw some unmarked plane, and it wasn't on my flight tracker that I carry in my pocket. People say this stuff. Nicholas Pett says, have you seen the don't eat the chicken thing going on? 3D printed chicken. Yeah, I saw the thing. I think it's Campbell's Soup has 3D printed chicken. They didn't tell anybody. And he's like, yeah, the poor people eat this stuff. Ha ha ha. So what are you saying? It's human meat? There are people who believe that McDonald's is human meat. And my problem is that they are content just to believe this. They're not out there screaming, Big Macs is people. Chicken nuggets is people. If I thought McDonald's was feeding humans to humans, I would be there every day protesting. And these people who actually believe it or pretend to believe it, they're not engaged in activism. So like, if you really claim to believe some conspiracy that puts us all in this nightmare scenario and you're not fighting it actively, I don't think you're serious. Like, I expect more from the conspiracy theorists. Like, whatever happened to save the children from the reptilians and the deep state and the satanic rituals in the tunnels? McDonald's slogan was, our secret ingredient is our people. Well, okay, so McDonald's either has life extension or human meat in there. It's one of the two. It kills you. I think it's, people are always talking about, no, these companies aren't going to kill you. You don't kill your customers. You make them live longer so they can eat more over time, get more money out of them. So no, I don't think so. They want you as a lifelong addict. So again, the chemtrail thing, it's an old, tired conversation, and I'm not interested in debating with these people, but I am interested in exposing the psyop for those who have the inclination to look into the possibility they might be wrong. And there's a reason why it matters. Why does it matter if you're wrong? Well, for two reasons. One, It puts you in league with the propaganda machine. You're following their program. So that's already a problem. But two, it exposes some weaknesses in how you process information when it comes to media. And that's the blind spot. You can be a specialist in any area of human endeavor, but if you process media in a very passive way, you're pretty much screwed. Like, you're susceptible, you're gullible. And gullible to what? Well, you're just going with the program where you're being emotionally manipulated, you're being put into categories in an info war where nobody's neutral. And we saw how divisive it got in 2020. I'm surprised there hasn't been any major psyop in order to screw up the holiday and Black Friday. Food labels say bioengineered on them.